We're going to try to get through all my 18 pages of notes and be out on time, too, so you can connect and all that good stuff. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for another opportunity to dive into your rich, rich, rich word. Thank you for every daughter here. Would you open our hearts and set aside the distractions and let our hearts be changed, God, not just notes taken, but lives altered as we hear the word and the truth that you have for us tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, so we are talking about New Balance. And so the last couple of times together, we talked about really moving God to the middle, not just having him at the top of your checklist, but letting him be the hub, the command center of everything in life. And our last time together, we talked about delighting in the Lord, what it means to find our desire, delight, joy in him so that he can plant his desires in our heart and drive our decisions. And I started really thinking about what comes next. And y'all know it was Easter weekend, so I had very few functioning brain cells. And I was like, I don't really know what to do. And every time I kind of get stuck, the Lord will say, look at your own life. Your life is jacked up enough where it can it can trigger something that you probably need to share. And so I did, and that's what he'll do, when he is in love. But yes, he'll bring it up. And so I started thinking about some things in my early 20s, and they were a few years ago. And I'm laughing because one of my ladies that hangs out with me around church was talking to another young lady, and they're over there talking about the single and young adults conference this weekend. And so one of them clearly needs to be at the single and young adults conference. The other one is right outside that line. And so she says, how young do you have to be to attend? So I said to her, if you have to ask, you just need to come to the marriage conference. She's like, but I'm just outside. I said, that's all right. I know what it's like. I remember when you turn that age that put you into that next box. And so it's okay. It's part of life. But this particular instance happened in my 20s. I was then very eligible for the Singles and Young Adults Conference. And I was thinking about a time in my life where I was always been a very driven person. And so super ambitious, just wanted to achieve. And I mean, in high school, I was the person that was competitive. It was borderline compulsive, borderline Christian, just just had to win, want to be first, all that good stuff. Super competitive in sports and things like that. Then got to college, super competitive academically, just wanted to be the best. Not the best like valedictorian, but like the best at what I wanted to do, right? So I was a very focused achiever. I wasn't trying to do everything right. So I just have always been that way. And then it came time for corporate America, and I was like, it didn't even really matter if I liked corporate America, but that was the thing, and I wanted to make money, and so I went into corporate America, and I made money. I made a lot of money, and was single, and didn't have any bills, and didn't have any kids, and I look back on that time and go, what was I doing with that money? Well, yeah, traveling, doing stupid things, eating out every day, things that you do when you don't have any responsibilities and you have too much money. And so it just happens. So somebody says amen for no responsibilities and too much money. It's a short season, so enjoy it. Something is going to change. You're going to run out of money or get some responsibilities. So just enjoy. God bless you. So anyway, I was thinking about when that was my season, and I was thinking about some real defining moments in my life, and when all my ambition and all my drive really came to a halt. A few significant moments in my life, and I got my feelings hurt. And one of the first times was I was out of college, had been out of college a few years, and then because I was not clearly making enough money, I needed to make even more money. I decided I needed to get my MBA. And so I went to applying to all these schools. I had a list of schools I wanted to attend, and I said, well, really, I want to be at Columbia University in New York. This is where I want to go. I went to visit Columbia. I went to stay on campus. I got the tour, talked to professors. Yes, this is what you need me here in your school. I will add value. And so I, kind of waited to the last minute to do it, but I was like, I'm going to talk my way into this thing. So I applied. And they were like, oh, we're so excited to get your application. Just hold on, because you kind of passed the registration date, blah, blah, blah. I was like, get me in there. And so a few weeks passed, and I got that letter in the mail. I ripped that letter open. And really, I wasn't even anxious about reading it, because I knew it was acceptance. And except it wasn't. Except Columbia was like, excuse me. Thank you for trying. Please play again. So they were like, we want to put you on the wait list. We think you have potential, blah, blah, blah. I was like, potential? No, I need to go now. And y'all, my feelings were hurt. And they were hurt because it was the first time in my life I had tried to do something and been rejected. And if you remember your first failure, maybe you were a kid trying a sport or a talent or a whatever. Man, that thing hit me like a ton of bricks. And God was like, yes, this is reality. And so, you know me, I called the school. I said, there's been an error. Y'all, there's another Jada. And y'all sent her my acceptance letter to go get it. But so they were like, no, ma'am, you can try again. And, you can move up here. We'd love to have you audit. No. So my feelings were hurt, y'all. And that was April of 2000. April of 2000. Y'all remember that date. All right. So then the next major thing that happened was in May of 2000, I met the amazing Dr. Conway Edwards. He wasn't a doctor then. He only had like 12 degrees, not 14. And so I met him in May. And we courted. We had a pretty quick courtship, as you can imagine, two firecracker kind of people. We were like, yes, who are you? Do I like you? Okay, we should get married. Let's get married. So 10 months later, we were married. And that's pretty much how it went. I met him in May. We were married the next March. And it wasn't until several months into our marriage that I started to see the timeline of what God had allowed in my life. And I was like, man, had I gotten into Columbia, oh my goodness, what difference would that have made in my life? And so that was like, okay, God, you kind of might know what you're doing. And so I was, you don't trust him for the whole 12 months. It's not until it makes sense to you. Then you're like, oh, I see. I see what you were doing. Don't act like it's just me. Y'all all do it. You act like you're faithful. The Lord is sovereign, whatever he says. But it's not until like a month, a year, 5 years later when it makes sense to you, you're like, man, God is good. You're like, oh. He's like, oh, now I'm good? Okay, all right. As long as you approve, So I was kind of starting to think that God kind of knew what he was doing. I was like, okay, fine. And so I was in my job and I was making my money and life was great. And I was trying to explain to my husband how we needed to have these fabulous things because I made this fabulous money. He did not make fabulous money because he was an international student, part-time, visa, in seminary. He was an expense, right? So he did not make money. So he made a little bit of money, but he loved Jesus. And I was like, I'm going to support us both, baby. It don't matter to me. You the leader of this home. I was all into it. So it didn't matter. And I told him, I said, we need to get this car and this apartment. And, he's all trying to be leader, new husband. And he was like, no, we're going to live off my salary. So you don't have no salary. Now look, I don't know if they teach y'all this in Marriage 101, but that submission thing is real. And it don't gradually bring you into it. You just running your life one day, and the next day somebody's talking about we're gonna live off my salary. It's like, who are you? So I just started listing all of my credentials that I had lived on my own. I know how to do this. We can manage this money. And he was like, no, and no. And so we're in this small apartment, and I was frustrated because I was like, okay, when you get married, you're supposed to upgrade your life. This apartment is smaller than the condo I sold. So I was like, I was trying to be obedient, y'all. And then the second major change happened in my life. I got laid off. Oh, yeah. He had a I told you so all in his just, what y'all were thinking now, yeah, he was just like, he was telling me, honey, it'll be all right. He was looking at me like, right? And so I remember going through that layoff, was downsizing, and I was in a tech firm at that time, and so it was the late 90s, and a lot of things were happening in technology, and my feelings were hurt again. I was having Columbia flashbacks, and I was like, I don't understand why I got laid off. And, my husband's trying to explain to me that the company downsized by thousands. I was like, yeah, but that's them. I don't understand why I got laid off, And I really went through kind of an identity crisis. And that was the second major time that really my feelings got hurt. And a goal that I had set for myself hit a brick wall. And I was like, man, something is not right. Now the Columbia thing shook me up a little bit, but this thing really unsettled me. And it might not seem like it should, but it really did. Losing my job, I'd never been fired. I'd never been laid off or let go. That was other people. And when they were walking out, I was like, it'll be all right. You know, the Lord, He knows. And, you know, so I had a word of encouragement for them. But I was like, I really was confused. And then I felt less valuable. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm not really good at this. Well, who am I? And I just went through all this big identity crisis. And I really was like, okay, I don't know what to do with my life. I feel very lost. Where do I apply? I'm applying for jobs, and what do I do next? And then of course I didn't have any money, so I was really distraught. And my husband was like, you need to go get groceries. We have $30. I was like, to to I was like, what? Wait, groceries, plural, like grocery, because I don't know what we're buying with $30, right? And so it was just a rough time. It was a rough time, y'all, and it was in a moment where I was having some quiet time with the Lord, really, because when you get laid off or when life crisis happens, your quiet time game is tight. You know what I'm talking about? It don't matter. It don't matter. You're like, you know what? I'm about to read Chronicles. You want to read something real spiritual. You're like, me and the Lord, we're about to walk through Leviticus over these next 2 weeks. Because, I mean, your quiet time game is so tight because you're just like, when you hit the end of yourself, right? So then you want to spend all this time with the Lord. You need a new Bible and markers and the cover and all this stuff. Because you're like, I'm about to be before the Lord, right? And so I was in one of my quiet times that I was kind of just sitting there like, okay, God, I need to figure out where to apply, what to do next, what to do, what to that, blah, blah. And he said, Jada, have you ever asked yourself or asked me what I want you to do? And in my mind, I was like, yeah, because we've been doing this thing together, right? I've had all these blessings, and that was you and me doing things. And he was like, no, every goal that you have pursued in your life to date has been a goal that you determined and set for yourself. Every single one. And then he showed me that because he loves me, he decided to bless me and close the door on an MBA and allow me the blessing of being laid off from a company I didn't need to be at so that I could have some time to reevaluate my life decisions. And I didn't realize those were blessings. But let me tell you, those closed doors are blessings. The end of that relationship is a blessing. And that closed door is a blessing. And I had some time to sit there and evaluate what the trajectory of my life, and it really was a life driven by my own ambition. And in that moment, the Lord posed a life-altering question to me. And he simply said, are you going to live a life driven by ambition or a life driven by my assignment? That was it. Now, he said, you need to make a decision. Because if you are going to be ambitious and tenacious and go after all these things you want to go after, then you cannot at the same time want the same blessing and covering and provision and abundance and joy that I give you when you're driving after my assignment. And so there was a profound emptiness that I really had to go through. It was almost like depression. And even my husband was like, I mean, it was just a job. And it wasn't the job. It was the fact that life was not going according to plan. And have you had that moment where you're like, I didn't think I would be here, right? Because you had this thing laid out and you had a backup plan if it didn't work out right. And all of a sudden, all your plans and contingencies collapsed at the same time. And so you're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I do next? And God in his grace and his favor does not show you what comes next. Because if he did, you would pursue it and go after it hard and drive after it like you did everything else. But in his graciousness, sometimes, he said, just wait. Can we just check in for a minute? And that's what he did. He gave me a blessed opportunity to pump the brakes. Because I'm glad to have had that conversation then 20 years later when I realized I spent my whole life pursuing something that was not what God intended for me. And so this whole question is really what drives our lesson tonight. Are you driven by ambition or assignment? Are you driven by ambition or assignment? Because I can tell you that in the season of my life when I was driven by ambition, there was no balance. You cannot have this balanced life, the life that the believer is supposed to enjoy, not the perfectly proportioned life, but the life where we're sensitive to the Spirit, able to thrive in His calling and purpose. We can't have that kind of balance when we are driving after our own ambitions rather than the Lord's assignment. Because when we work ridiculous hours and we spend ridiculous amounts of money and we think of ourselves more highly than we ought to. And the things that take up our thoughts and our energy and our planning are all things that are going to fuel our ambition. And let me tell you something. We're living in a society that uses the spirit of entrepreneurship to disguise the spirit of rebellion. We use the spirit of independence and movement and leading a cause or entrepreneurship, and this is what I need to get out and do for myself, to disguise the spirit of rebellion. And it's not that every entrepreneur is a rebel. It's not that every person that leads a cause is against God. But how many times are we doing that because that is what God has ordained us to do? Not because we're frustrated with having a boss. We don't know how to be good employees. We don't know how to be somewhere and be committed. We don't know how to honor God. We don't know how to have a fortitude and pursue something and stick to something. It becomes the backup plan because really everything else is too hard or inconvenient or we just don't want to do it. Well, then you still are being driven by your own ambition. And so God is saying, which one will it be? Because ambitions, yes, it's this great sustained desire, but it's so often when it's a self-centered ambition, it's fueled by pain and pride and fear and rejection and betrayal and trauma and abandonment and all of these things that happened at some point in our lives that were painful or negative, or somehow along the way we decided who we wanted to be based on mom, dad, society, magazine cover, favorite celebrity, whoever it was. Somehow we got into our mind who we wanted to be and how we were going to pursue that, and we left God out of the picture. And the Bible warns us against that. In Philippians 2:3, Paul says, do nothing from selfish ambition. Do nothing from selfish ambition or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard others as more important than yourselves. So the Bible warns us against that when it's a selfish ambition, but that doesn't mean that we should have no ambition. It just needs to be God-driven. Because that's when your life can have the balance that you're after. When you've got an assignment by God and your ambition is driving you toward that. The assignment from God comes from the very beginning. So it's not something you have to go find. You don't have to search it out. All you have to do is ask God, what is it? Because it's there and it's waiting. In Galatians 1:15, Paul says this, that God had called him and set him apart from his mother's womb. This was Paul, the murderer. Paul, who was persecuting the church of God, knew that even in his foolishness, he still had a calling on his life that God had given him in his mother's womb. So this assignment is not hard to find. It's not something that we need to go through a whole bunch of exercise to find. If you just ask God, what is the thing you've called me to do? What do you want to do with my life? It's yours. How do I offer it to you? What does that look like in the grand scheme of my life? What does it look like on a daily basis? It's there for the taking. It has to be received by us. In Acts chapter 9, the same Paul who had been called from his mother's womb at the time was living out a life like he was called. And Jesus said to him, why are you persecuting me? Get your life. Paul, what are you doing? Right? Because God in his grace will allow us just enough rope. And then he will come and say, what are you doing? It's a painful thing for a parent to see something amazing that's been deposited in you, and you be living everything against the thing that's supposed to be for you, for your good. And so Jesus will come to a point and he'll say, no, you're not getting in the MBA school. No, you're not taking his job. Paul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you living a life that totally goes against the calling I've deposited in you? And so Paul says, you know what? His first response was, who are you, Lord? His first response was to acknowledge the lordship of Jesus Christ, because it was there all along. So even though our sinful choices and our foolishness can kind of squish it down sometime and suppress it, it doesn't mean it goes away. We have to be the ones to receive the calling that God has given us if we want to live on assignment. So here's how you know. Here's the question for tonight. How do I know if my life is being driven by ambition or assignment? How do I know What's driving me? Am I being driven by ambition or assignment? And we're going to look at three slices of three different lives: Esther and John the Baptist and Paul, to get some really good examples. The first thing is that people on assignment embrace humility. People on assignment embrace humility. People driven by ambition embrace pride. People on assignment embrace humility. People driven by ambition embrace pride. So when it comes to living on assignment, we don't stand on our credentials. We stand on our calling. And so if the thing you're trying to accomplish in life is all about the letters behind your name and the things you've done and the hard work you've put in, then you might need to ask yourself, is this being driven by ambition or assignment? Because the people living on assignment embrace humility. And even though we may have qualifications and God will equip us, and there are experiences and skills and talents that we have amassed over our lifetimes, the greatest qualification is what he's deposited in us, not what we've deposited in ourselves. Always, always, always. So we don't embrace our credentials. We stand on our calling. God will make sure that your skills and your talents are not the source of your success. Trust me. He will. If you've ever, I don't know if this has happened to you, you find yourself being successful at something, and when people ask you, well, how did you get there? What did you do? And you're just like, I don't know. God just did it, right? He just did it. That's our answer often when we talk to pastors and other leaders, and they say, yeah, how did you get your church? I said, look, yeah, we can tell you what we've done, but you need to understand the secret ingredient is just favor. And so it doesn't matter my skills and my strategies and my program. God has to deposit his divine favor on it. That's how you know you're living in assignment. Paul's greatest claim was grace. And Paul had a lot of credentials, but his greatest claim was grace because he was on assignment. He embraced humility. 1 Corinthians 15:9, he says, for I am the least of the apostles, not even fit to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. In 1 Timothy 1, he says, I am the chief sinner of them all. God can save anybody because he saved me. When you're living on assignment, you're not really trying to explain to people why you deserve to be where you are. You're explaining to them why it makes no sense that you are where you are. And when you get too many compliments, it should make you uncomfortable, because you don't want anything that makes it look like you know what you're doing and you got yourself here. Because every compliment should be an opportunity to point somebody to the cross, to point somebody to Jesus Christ and what he's done in your life. And it doesn't matter if you put in the word great, but if God didn't bless it, if God didn't give you grace to be able to work, if he didn't give you favor to be able to receive the work that you offered, you still wouldn't be where you are. When people come and say, oh my gosh, you just say, thank you, but you need to understand. You need to understand that if I die today, that the kingdom of God can still go forward. That God can use anybody. He's just chosen to use me. Because when you're on assignment, you embrace humility. You don't receive the compliments and believe your own report, because we know that gets us in trouble. Looking at the life of Esther, same situation. She understood that her position was one of grace and favor. And Esther, who goes down in history for the things that she did on behalf of God's people in the name of God. In Esther chapter 2, verse 7, it says she was beautiful. Now, I don't care who you are. You can't work to be beautiful. Now, we can fix ourselves up, and our society has given us a whole lot of layers to add on to whatever is happening so we can make ourselves feel beautiful. But at this age, at this point, for someone else to consider her beautiful when the king was looking for a queen, that's just favor. She didn't do anything to earn that. And it goes on to say in Esther chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, that she was taken into the king's palace, and she pleased him and found favor with him. Why? Because God's grace. That's it. And when you're on assignment, trust me, favor is going to make way for you. You don't have to claw and work and try to be in somebody's good grace. When you're on assignment, you can embrace humility, because you know God is going to pave the way with favor. And you'll find yourself in places and you'll say, I don't even know how I got here. And God says, don't even worry about it. You're on assignment. You are here. Just do what I've asked you to do. But you can embrace that humility because you know that God is going to make the way. It says embracing humility means that you don't need credit or you don't need the connection. So Here's what's amazing about the story of Esther. When she had been chosen to go into the king's court, she had an uncle who was raising her at the time, and his assignment was to support his niece and to challenge her, which he did a few times throughout this story. In Esther chapter 2, verse 10 and 11, it says that Mordecai gave her instructions on what she should say. He said, look, don't tell them who you are. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to go in here and handle this thing. Then it says every day he walked back and forth in front of the court to see how she fared. I love that statement because it tells me that Mordecai knew his role. That just because his niece had been promoted didn't mean that he needed to be like put in a word for me and tell the king that, I'm real good at such and such. Because that's what we do. And as soon as our friend gets something, we're like, oh, see if they need no, it's okay. Because when you're on assignment, you can embrace humility. You don't have to hustle. Let me tell you, when you're on assignment, God will open the door for you. You don't have to try to get your hustle and say, oh, I know so-and-so, and can you be my point of reference, and can you be my... No, let God make the way for you. Mordecai was like, look, I don't need to be in there with you. I need to be on the outside. This is my role. I'm going to support you. I'm going to challenge you. I don't need you to put in a good word for me. I'm still your uncle. You're still my niece. You be whoever God's called you to be. I'm going to be who God's called me to be. That's what it means when I'm living on assignment. I don't feel the need to try to have what you have. Because I know what God has for me. And I'd rather be right where he wants me and be on assignment than been doing the thing that makes me feel good, but be driven by my own ambition. Because that's what happens. As soon as somebody next to us gets a little something, we're like, man, I wonder how I can, that's why, you know what, you always hear about when people win the lottery, how it's just like random cousins come out of the woodwork. And you're like, who are you again? Because it's just human nature. When somebody that we almost feel connected to is on the rise, that's what we do when we don't feel comfortable with where we are. Like, oh, I got to catch on to what you're doing. And God is saying that's because you're not walking with confidence in what I've given you to do. Because if you were, you wouldn't even have time to be worried about what I've given them. You have your own assignment. And we can embrace that humility. And know this, that humility, y'all, is not a personality. Let me say this before I move on. Humility is not a personality. It doesn't mean that you're quiet, okay? It means to have a low estimation of oneself, right? So Paul was a very vocal and direct writer and author and apostle, but he had a humility because he learned that he was broken at the feet of Jesus. And there are some people who might be quiet, but that doesn't mean they're humble. Because if you're quiet and holding your tongue, but in your mind you're discounting the fact that somebody else has something that you think you should have, you still haven't embraced humility, and you've just got a quiet pride that's going to drive you to figure out how you can get what they have. Now, why did they get it? Because I'm the better cook. I'm the better singer. I'm the nicer person. I'm the more qualified. And so just because you're smiling on the outside doesn't mean that you've embraced humility. And let me tell you, that quiet pride, it makes you just kind of give the pleasant smile, but on the inside, you're really wondering why that person got blessed, why they have it and you don't. That pride is going to be driving that ambition, and it will throw your life out of balance because you will spend time and energy trying to prove to yourself and prove to the world that really you deserve what so-and-so has. And you're going to waste your time, waste your energy, waste your talents and your resources, and miss the assignment God has for you. Pride is dangerous to us. We have to embrace humility if we're on assignment, because here's what pride will do. It will make us stay places that we don't need to stay just because it makes us feel good. It will make us stay with people and in places that feed our ego, and they are not feeding God's calling on our lives. And on the reverse, it will make us say no to things that we think are beneath us. But God has said, no, this is part of your assignment. But when you're ambitious and not living on assignment, that pride will make you say, oh, no. I was reading an interesting story about starting a franchise with Chick-fil-A. I don't know if you've ever researched that. I think we have a few Chick-fil-A operators in our church too. But first of all, it's a unique enterprise. It's a very low startup cost. Most of the time, if you buy a franchise at McDonald's or Chipotle, Subway, you're into the, $250,000, $750,000, sometimes more, $2 million, etc. All this capital you need, a lot of liquid assets. Chick-fil-A says, look, you don't need $10,000. That's all right. You can just empty your savings and go buy your Chick-fil-A, right? But here's the catch. They don't call you an owner. They call you an operator. Because nobody owns a Chick-fil-A. The corporation still retains ownership. And they have fees that you have to pay, et cetera, et cetera. But what they do is they insist that you embrace their culture, and that becomes more important than whatever it is you're trying to do as an entrepreneur. You can't resell it to make more money later because you don't own it. You're an operator. They don't even let you own more than one. You pick your one Chick-fil-A, and they want you to say, look, you know why? Because they want you to be intimately invested in that Chick-fil-A. You need to know your customers, know your people. And at the end of the day, if this store is suffering, not going well, you need to be able to roll up your sleeve and get on the fries. That's what they want you to be able to do. That's the truth. Serve these drinks, clean up this floor. And there's a lot of people driven by ambition who have not fared well because they get hundreds of thousands of applications every year and they accept about 70 because they look at your culture. It's not just your money. They want to know, what is your culture? Are you in it to serve people? Because when you're on assignment, look here, Chick-fil-A is on assignment. And they don't care if you're trying to make money and flip it and turn it over. They're like, I don't really care. This is not where you go to make a great investment and then sell it and become a millionaire. Because that's not how it's going to work. You're going to work hard. You're not going to get to grow your own business because we own the business. You still have to follow our rules. You're an operator of our business, not an owner of your own. Because when you're living on assignment, okay, it's not this ambitious pride that's driving you. That's why they haven't gone public. That's why they still stay closed on Sundays. Because they're like, we don't need more and more and more. We don't need to feel better about ourselves. We have an assignment that our faith drives, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure we stay on assignment. That's what it means. It means you say no to some things. It means sometimes you don't get to expand your territory as far as you think you would like because it gets you off assignment. It starts to feed the ambition instead of what God's called you to do. So when I'm living on assignment and I can embrace humility, then I can reject all the pride. And let me tell you, it will make you make some decisions, ladies, and you will sit there wondering, why am I in this predicament? Well, it's some pride issues that I'm doing, that I'm engaging in and saying yes to some decisions because they make me feel good about myself, as opposed to being comfortable in the humility and saying, you know what, it doesn't really matter what everybody else thinks. It doesn't really matter if this makes me look better. Because sometimes God's going to call you to get on the fries, and it doesn't matter that you know in your heart that you're the owner operator. It doesn't matter that people are going to walk in and see you on the fries and filling drinks, and you're like, man, I own this place. It doesn't matter what's your assignment. And if you get so caught up in position, so caught up in the things that are ambitious and prideful, you will be derailed and distracted every single time. People on assignment live a life of humility. Secondly, people on assignment have established identity. They have established identity. So it's not comparison. It's not a competition. When you're on assignment, you already know who you are. When you're living ambitiously, you're driven by insecurity. So you're always trying to establish who you are. But when you're on assignment, you've been established in Christ Jesus. And so I don't have to prove anything else to anybody. I have an established identity. And it's not in the assignment, but it's in the one who gives it. Because look, the assignment can change. My identity is in the one who gives the assignment. Let me tell y'all, our first 7 years of marriage, the plan was for us to move back to Jamaica. My husband is Jamaican, for those of you that don't know. And we were going to be here for a few years, go back to Jamaica, change the world, plant some churches, train some church leaders. And it really kind of altered our identity because for 7 years, every time I wanted to buy a piece of furniture or do something that would make us rooted here, my husband was like, no, just don't even get nothing. We have to sell it and give it away anyway. So that was fine the first year or two. You know, I felt real missionary, like real spiritual, you know, holding things loosely. You know, I don't need it, Lord. It's just stuff. Then by year 3, and I was like, okay, this college couch, this is time. You know, we need some stuff. And he's like, no, because then we have to go to Jamaica and then customs and duty and blah, blah, blah. And we won't be able to take it. And who knows where we're going to live. And I mean, it just changed everything. It altered everything. So we didn't buy a house. We didn't buy any furniture. We didn't do anything that really rooted us here, right? So we could just pick up and go whenever the Lord said. For 7 years. How many? Okay. And at that moment, I wasn't feeling spiritual. Like that's the number of completion. I was just like, it's been 7 years, right? And it's pots underneath my couch because we don't have no space, right? So I was like, Jesus. And on top of that, he still wants to have parties. So we in this 1-bedroom apartment, And he'd be like, yeah, let's have New Year's Eve at our house. We don't have no house, first. First of all. Okay, first of all, you know when you listen to stuff, you right. First of all, we don't have a house. I was like, second of all, where are they going to be? We're in a one-bedroom den, okay? Then this is the other room that's not the bedroom. So I was like, where are people going to be? Yeah, it would be like 30 people at our house. Sitting on the bed, sitting on the couch, sitting on the kitchen counter, just wherever. He's like, oh, it's fine. It'll be fine. So we were still growing, accumulating a few things, having people over. We were still in ministry. And it was crazy. And it altered our whole identity. And sometimes I would get real salty. I would get real upset. Because I would see something on sale. I'm like, oh my gosh, we need it. He's like, no, we don't need to be buying nothing. You just never know. I was like, bruh, this is year 5. We need to know something, And y'all, so the day he came in to tell me, I really, I've been praying. That's what. Anything started out, I've been praying. You're like, this is not going to go well. So he said, I've been praying, and I really feel like the Lord is calling us to plant a church. So I was like, yeah, in Jamaica. He's like, no, here. You know what I said? I could have been buying furniture all this time. You telling me that I could have been saving that? We could have had a nice little dinette set, and we could have had And he was like, is that your takeaway? Yes, that is my takeaway. Because it had changed. It just had altered how we lived, y'all. Everything was built around going to Jamaica. So we would go travel to Jamaica 5 times a year, looking at property, doing conferences, building networks and connections. It changed everything. And so it took a minute to recalibrate once he said he wanted to plant a church. And I was just like, okay, let me be with the Lord. Just go on. Close the door. Let me be with the Lord. And it took me a few months to get my mind around, okay, we're staying here. Okay, what does that mean? Church plant and all that. But you know what? I didn't get stuck there. Because at the end of the day, my identity wasn't in the assignment itself. My identity was in the one who gave the assignment. And so if it changes, sometimes it's going to change. But it doesn't change my identity. And see, that's how I knew something was wrong when I went through that mini depression when I got laid off. I was like, something is not right. I don't understand why losing a job or why a shutdown opportunity is making me question who I am. That's when you're driven by ambition, because let me tell you, ambition feeds on insecurity. So I have to do more, make more, get more, be more, better title, new this. It's constant and it's never enough. And as soon as you achieve the next thing that's driven by ambition, you're satisfied for about 10 seconds and then you need something else. Your identity is always in flux. Who you are is always up for question when you're driven by ambition. When I am on assignment, my identity is certain, it's established. It doesn't matter what God allows to come my way. My identity is sure. Paul's identity was only in Jesus Christ. I love the beginning of his letters. If you just read through a few of them, Galatians 1, he says, Paul, an apostle, not sent from men, nor through the agency of man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father who raised him from the dead. Boom. Okay? Ephesians 1, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ by the will of God. 1 Timothy 1:1 says, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the commandment of God our Savior and of Christ Jesus, who is our hope. Right? But here's the best one. Romans 1, verse 1. He says, Paul, a bondservant of Christ Jesus, called as an apostle, set apart for the gospel of God, which he promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, concerning his son who was born of a descendant of David according to the flesh, who was declared the Son of God with power by the resurrection from the dead, according to the Spirit of holiness, Jesus Christ our Lord, through whom we have received grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith among all the Gentiles for his name's sake, among whom you are also the called of Jesus Christ. That's just who I am. And he was just like, just in case you were wondering, this is who I am. Because when I'm on assignment, this identity, look here, it didn't matter if Paul found himself in a great situation or in prison. The letter started out the same. Nothing changed that I was a bondservant of Jesus Christ. Nothing changed that I was called of God by the will of God. Nothing changed that my priority was a servant of the one who is our great hope. And I wonder sometimes when we think about who we are, what is the first thing you associate with your identity? Is it the fact that you're a bondservant of Jesus Christ, or a business owner, or an MBA grad, or a medical school grad, or the first in your family to go to college, or the one who owns 2 cars, or the first one to buy a house? What are the things that you're using as the pivot point of your identity? Because whatever they better be things that can never change. Because if it can change, that means you're driven by ambition and not assignment. Because if I'm a bondservant of Jesus Christ, there is no situation in this life that can change that as my intro statement. Nothing you say to me, nothing someone does to me, no circumstance God allows to happen to me can change me saying, Jada, bondservant of Jesus Christ, called by God, of the will of God, the one who is our hope. And so whatever you're saying after your name, it has to be something that is as immutable as the God we serve, means it cannot change. Because if it's something that's conditional, if you lose your job and your title changes, if you lose that house and your identity changes, if you lose your family or your marriage or your health and it changes your identity, that means you're living a life driven by ambition and not one on assignment. Because people on assignment have established identity. And so the worst circumstance doesn't send you into a tailspin. He says, okay, God, I still know who I am. Now tell me what we need to do. This is the thing. It's like when you see an athlete that, plays just a little bit too long. And you look at it and you watch sports. You're like, oh, it's time for them. They still playing? Right? But when it's time for that athlete to retire, have you ever seen a press conference? An athlete that is letting go of his or her sport? Y'all, it's emotional. And they're a wreck. And everybody starts to hover over the next few months and years trying to figure out, what are they going to do with their lives now? Because that thing was their identity. And when that thing is gone, when you're living by ambition and you have the rings or the championship and you've achieved all you can achieve in that thing, then who are you? That's what ambition will do. It will leave you high and dry. It's like when the last kid leaves the house and you're trying to figure out, well, who am I now? Because I'm not making lunches and shuttling people around and coordinating schedules. Well, now who am I? What happens? Because these things alter our identity when we've placed everything in them. And even in good parenting, and even in being a good wife, even in being a good employee, that's why retirement sometimes can just derail us. Like, what do I do next? What do I do now? Because all of those things, even though they are good, they cannot be the goal. They cannot be the thing that drive us. And when you live a life of ambition, I want to be the best mom. I want to be the best employee. I want to be the best this. And then God allows that circumstance to change. Then who are you? But when you live a life on assignment, there is no change that can make you question your identity. You just say, I know who I am. Now what's next? That's it. That's it. And this is important because when we live a life driven by ambition and those insecurities that drive us and that identity, all those external identities, they throw our lives off balance. Because if the thing I want to be most is the greatest mom ever, then all of my energy and my money and my time and my thoughts, I become obsessed with that thing. And there's nothing wrong with being a great mom. But how do I know what the assignment is God's called me to? And maybe he's saying, I have an assignment for you. This is part of it, but it's not all of it. And if I want to be the best employee and the highest ranking female and the first this and the only that, and all of my energy goes into that thing, that's why my life is out of whack. And I'm wondering why I'm tired and I'm not satisfied, because he's saying your insecurity and your ambition are driving your life. And so you're making decisions on how to spend your money, on what to do with your time, on how to invest your energy, how to use your gifts and your talents and your skills, things that are mine. You're making decisions driven by your insecurity as opposed to decisions that already function out of established identity. This is why life get out of whack, because we don't embrace humility. So pride is making us go after stuff we have no business going after. And we don't embrace identity. And so insecurity is making us try to prove something to a world full of strangers that could really care less, when the only God who really matters, already knows who we are. So if you live a life on assignment, not only do you embrace humility and you have established identity, you hold earthly things loosely. Hold them loosely. Y'all might not like me after this one, but that's all right. You know I love you. You know, family, we don't have to like each other. We love each other. I don't know about y'all's family. My family's like that. Hold things loosely, earthly things loosely. This is really what true contentment means. Because when you're driven by ambition, you kind of have a hoarding mentality. Like, I got to get as much as I can. It's like when I travel. Y'all, when I travel for vacation, look, my husband already knows. We can't share no suitcase. We can't, no. Keep your stuff over there, because this is how he packs. You're right, I like, no, my stuff is neat, folded, stacked, sorted. No, keep your stuff over there. And on top of that, don't use your whole suitcase, because once I fill mine up, I'm going to need part of yours, all right? This is one flesh, all right? So I'm going to need part of that suitcase. So this is what happens when we travel on vacation. He's just like, where are we going? Don't worry about it. Just in case it might rain. We might go for a walk. I might want a long skirt. I mean, I'm on vacation, right? So I'm throwing everything in. It doesn't matter. And here's the other thing. I'm not traveling by myself, so I'm not carrying any bags. It's like, I'm not worried about the weight. I don't care what's in there. But look, when I'm traveling to go speak somewhere, my whole goal is do not check a bag. Look, and if you're a professional traveler, if you have to travel a lot, anybody in here have to travel a lot for work? If you have to travel a lot for work, you know. Look, somebody can give you a carry-on this big. And you're like, that's all I need. I can get all three of my outfits and my toiletries. And you just like, my toothbrush and my shoes and everything is. Because when you're trying to not check a bag and you know exactly where to park and where your gate is and you're trying to get on and off and not be fooling with baggage claim and $50 and overweight, look. And the person in front of you is the person who's down and they got their bag open, they trying to move. You're like, we need an amateur line because who is this person? Who is this person? We need a veteran line and a first timers line because you slowing me down, girl. Right? I timed when I was gonna get here because I knew I didn't have to check a bag and you unpacking and reshuffling and it's a difference, right? Because I'm more focused and I don't need a lot of stuff. I travel light because vacation, that's just my ambition. That's what I want to do. But when I go speak, I'm on assignment. And I don't want to be bothered with a whole bunch of choices. I pick out my things. Let's go. Let's roll it up. Let's get it moving. That's what it means when you don't have to hold on to a lot of things. When you're on assignment, you hold earthly things loosely. Let me show you. John the Baptist, who was the forerunner of Jesus Christ. You're talking about somebody who held earthly things loosely. In Matthew chapter 3, it says he wore garments of camel's hair. He ate locusts and honey. Y'all, and you can't, when you read this, don't think that, because that's biblical. No. That was weird then. That was strange then. People who saw John chopping on a grasshopper and swallowing honey was like, okay, all right. You do you, right? That wasn't normal just because it was a long time ago. He was strange then. But he didn't care about all that. He's like, I'm going to take somebody greater than me. And I don't really have time to have the fanciest food and the nicest clothes because they're irrelevant to our assignment. That's really what it was. And then you look at Paul's life in Philippians chapter 3. He says, whatever was gain to me, I counted as loss. All of these credentials, all of who I was, I hold those things loosely. Because in all these introductions, he never said that I was the greatest of the Hebrews and I was the best of this and that. He said, I'm an apostle of Jesus Christ. I hold all those things loosely. That's what it means when you live on assignment. You don't have to hoard those things. Here's the most difficult one. Even your own life. Even the idea of life, we have to hold loosely. Can you imagine? Look here, let me tell you something. There are times, and if you're a parent or if you have a loved one, it doesn't matter whether it's your mother, father, your child. Sometimes I don't know if it's just me, but I have moments sometimes when I look at my children. And this is not to sound morbid, but sometimes I say, man, God, if you took away one of my kids, what would I do? Who would I be? And I pray God it never happens. But sometimes he puts these thoughts in my head and he says, look, Jaden, I'm not trying to tell you that it's coming. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to let you know that even your most precious ones, that I hold them loosely. Y'all, let me tell you. Because if they are my world, even as good as they are, that's not my assignment. God is saying motherhood is a part of who you are. It's not the all-consuming thing. So don't get obsessed with this thing. Hold it loosely. Let me tell you something. In the Bible, Jesus had to experience this same thing. Excuse me, in Matthew chapter 14, Jesus found out that John the Baptist died. This is his cousin, and he was the forerunner for the coming of Jesus. He found out John the Baptist died, and here's what the very next verse says. It says, he withdrew from there into a boat to a secluded place to be by himself. That's it. He had a moment to himself. Then it says, and when the people heard of this, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and felt compassion for them. And he healed their sick. He went on to feed the 5,000 and walk on water. And the reason why this is important is because I know Jesus was mourning the loss of John the Baptist. But in the next 36 hours, he performed miracle after miracle after miracle. You know why? Because his assignment demanded that he hold earthly things loosely, even the life of a loved one. Look, there are some of you in here who are dealing with profound loss. And the enemy would want you to think that that is the end of you. It is not. It is not. Be by yourself. Grieve and mourn. But there is a time to get back on mission. And God says, look, you'll see them again. What I have for you is for a finite time. And trust me, you will see them longer than you'll be here. So focus for right here. Be on assignment. Hold everything loosely. You start clinging to stuff. Then all of a sudden, we don't know who we are. That's why we have divorce care. And that's why we have these things, because those major traumatic things in our lives make us say, wait a minute. I thought this was going to be everything. God says, you need to hold that thing loosely. That doesn't mean you don't work on reconciling your marriage or doing whatever your part is in your situation. But it cannot derail you. He's saying there is nothing on this earth, even a life. You know what Esther said when it's time to go before the king and Mordecai challenged her? She said, I will go before the king. And if I perish, I perish. That's it. She said, this assignment is greater than my days on earth. If I live, great. But I don't have to. I'm going to go after this thing that God's called me to do regardless. And let me tell you, if you are consumed with the things of this earth, you won't have any balance. You'll be driven by making sure earth is a nice place to live, as opposed to understanding that eternity is where we're headed. And there's an assignment that God has given you so that you can do his work for his kingdom on this earth. And I implore you to make room in your life for God's assignment. Don't make him do it for you. Don't. He will do it. Let me tell you, a few months ago, we had the privilege, of adopting our baby girl, and I had this office upstairs, and I was trying to find a way to give her a room in our house and keep my office. And because in my office is also my Christmas closet, because I'm a little bit busy when it comes to Christmas decorations. And so my husband was like, you want to let that closet go? And I was like, no, you need to go back to the Lord, because we going. I was like, look, she's going to be this big for a year. She don't need all this space. Just put over there by that tree and them lights, and she'll be all right. She won't know who she won't know. And sure enough, I had to break down my office and had to get my desk out and, filing cabinets and stuff and books and books and books and just stuff. And now, all of the things that were in my office are on 2 shelves in my guest bedroom closet. And sometimes I go up to those shelves and I go, I didn't need all that stuff. What? I don't even know what's on the 2 shelves. But I knew how much stuff I threw away when I was making space for my baby girl. Let me tell you, because that was my new assignment. And God said, all this stuff you're holding on to is to make you feel good about yourself. So you can feel achieved and accomplished and all these things. And I'm saying, let them go. You need to make room for something greater. You need to make room for something greater. And when you live life on assignment, as soon as God says let it go, you can let it go. We are in a hoarding culture. You don't always need a storage unit and a deep freeze and a everything. My God, you're not going to eat all that meat. Let that go. I mean, we just keep and keep and keep. We keep and keep and keep. And God says, you holding on to stuff and it's taking up room. And if I have assignment for you, I need you to be able to travel light. That's what it means to be able to live on assignment, to know you don't have to pack up your whole life just because God says go. When I am not driven by ambition, and I don't need to have this many cars in the garage and this many shoes in the closet and this many books on the shelf, I can live on assignment. I can hold things loosely. You're going to live on assignment. You have to embrace humility. You have to be established in your identity. And you have to hold earthly things loosely. And lastly, I'm going to close because we're a little bit over. People on assignment embody tenacity. That's an unwavering commitment. People on assignment embody tenacity. People driven by ambition will leave it whenever it's uncomfortable. And we are in a leaving culture, right? It's just like, this job doesn't fit me. I think I'm going to leave. You know, people who they change jobs every 5 months. They got to be in a different city. I need to lease my car because I might want something different in 2 years. You know, I'll just keep a car note forever. That's okay. But I want something new. I want something fresh. I need to always be changing. But people on assignment have unwavering commitment. Paul said in 2 Timothy chapter 4, I have fought the good fight and I finished the course. I've kept the faith. He never gave up. You will always know when you're living on assignment, because even in times where you want to quit, the Spirit of God will say, I need you to dig in and commit right here. I need you to stay. Not because it feels good, not because it's paying the dividends you thought it would pay, but because this is your assignment. It's like going through college. You have all those courses and classes that you're like trying to figure out, why do I have to take this? Well, that's okay. It's taking me somewhere. God said, I need you to learn how to commit, to be tenacious, to know how to live a life that is defined by faith and courage. Your life will be out of balance if you're always leaving when it's uncomfortable. That's just the truth of the matter. If you always have to keep changing, then it's probably not them. It's probably not them. I mean, I'm just saying. You can't have 18 bad bosses, right? It can't be every bad boyfriend, every bad city, always the apartment's fault. No, sometimes you just need to stay somewhere and learn how to resolve issues, deal with stuff, grow maybe. Because when we're on assignment, right, we're not flaky. We don't move until God says move. And here's the thing. The time that we think we should move is usually the time where he's saying stay. He said, no, I just need you to press through. I need you to represent me well here. People on assignment live with tenacity. Esther never gave up. She went before the king over and over again so she could represent her people well. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, you have to understand that pride and insecurity and holding things tightly and being flaky, all of those things, they just feed our ambition. They just make us make decisions that make us feel good, that we think make us look good, as opposed to looking like God. If you want a life that's balanced, if you want to be able to make decisions that don't drain you and make you fatigued and make you question, is this the right thing to do? Then you got to live on assignment and ask God to say, I need you to uproot this selfish ambition in me, God. I need you to show me my assignment. Let me be ambitious about that and not my own goals and not my own agenda. And when I look around this world, there's a greater assignment. You all have individual callings and purpose in your life. But look, we got people who are Facebook Living murder. We've got countries and wars being fought that don't affect us when we make our target run. We can live in our little bubble. We have got children that are dying and being abused. We've got families falling apart. This society is crumbling. And sometimes I wonder how many murderers and rapists and bullies and neglectful parents, how many terrorists, how many people who are committing these evil acts encountered Christians who weren't on assignment. And so they never heard the gospel. Because that's the only thing that changes anybody. That's the only thing that changes anybody. And I wonder how many times they've encountered people and have never heard the gospel. Because when you bumped into me, I was thinking about my ambition and the thing that's important to me, and not the assignment God had me on. Look, this is bigger than finding balance in your budget and in your calendar. That's important too, that your life be abundant and joyful, because that's what God promised. But the greatest assignment is the commission to go and make disciples, to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when I'm driven by ambition, consumed by pride, driven by insecurity and pain and fear and all of these things that go against God's identity for me, y'all, there are people that we pass every day that need an opportunity to know Jesus Christ. And we hold ourselves not accountable, because it wasn't me that pulled the trigger. It wasn't me that dropped the bomb. It wasn't me that did that particular act. But how do you know that they didn't cross your path and you weren't paying attention? How do you know that they did not encounter other believers who just were not living on assignment? It's a serious thing. It's a serious thing to live on assignment. And so, yes, I want your lives to be balanced and healthy and manageable and all of these wonderful things. But above all, I want you to understand that you cannot function the way God has created you to. You cannot partner with God for kingdom advancement. You cannot do divine works in the name of Jesus if your ambition trumps his assignment. That's it. Let's pray. Okay. I just want to pray for us. Do we have any close?